The Young and the Restless spoilers shock Saturday's full episodes April 12, 2025. When the dust settled after the harrowing disappearance of Sharon and Phyllis, no one suspected the unthinkable, that Tracy's fiancé, Alan, upstanding attorney, pillar of the community, might be involved. Yet whispers began to circulate. What if Alan wasn't the kindly, devoted man everyone believed him to be, but rather the diabolical twin brother he never mentioned, Martin, a remorseless psychopath with a talent for manipulation? In the aftermath of their escape from the hidden basement cell, Sharon and Phyllis clung to each other, bruised but unbroken. As they staggered into the alley, blinking at the afternoon sun, they swore they had glimpsed a familiar silhouette in the doorway, Alan's broad shoulders, the precise angle of his jaw. But could it really have been him? Or had Martin slipped into his brother's place, wearing his face like a mask? Meanwhile, back at Chancellor Winter's, word of the kidnapping had spread through the corridors like wildfire. Jack Abbott paced outside Tracy's office, phone pressed to his ear, demanding updates from the Genoa City Police Department. Diane Jenkins hovered nearby, her trademark concern etched deep in her brow. Even Ashley Abbott, ever the skeptic, had come by to offer her support, though her ice-blue eyes betrayed a flicker of suspicion. If Alan truly had a twin with a criminal past, none of them could be sure which brother had orchestrated this atrocity. Tracy herself was in turmoil. She remembered the first time Alan had mentioned Martin in passing, a family tragedy, he'd called it, with a forced smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He'd refused to elaborate. She'd let it drop. Who among us wants to pry into painful memories on the eve of our wedding? But now, trapped in that dingy cellar with Sharon and Phyllis, Tracy's mind reeled. What if the brother Alan described as lost had never really left the family? What if he'd been plotting revenge for years, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? And strike he did. Martin had abducted two of Genoa City's most notorious women, not out of personal vendetta, but as bait to lure Tracy into a deadly game of cat and mouse. Only by pitting the logical, dogged investigator in Tracy against the twisted mind of a psychopath could Martin prove his superiority over his twin. Once Sharon and Phyllis were safely returned, the police deemed the case closed. But Tracy was not convinced. She could see the pity in Alan's eyes when he greeted her at the station, an odd, almost patronizing look that reminded her too much of the way he'd treated Ashley during that long-ago family crisis. Was it sympathy, or something darker? Jack insisted on accompanying Tracy to Alan's law office that evening. "Let me talk to him first," he said, elbowing her gently. "He owes you that much." But Tracy shook her head. "I need to face him alone," she whispered. Jack sighed, tension coiling in his shoulders, but he reluctantly agreed. After all, what could possibly go wrong with Tracy Abbott, innocent, trusting Tracy Abbott, going toe-to-toe with a certified psychopath? They found Alan in his plush corner office, the setting sun glinting off the skyline behind him. He rose to greet her with an awkward smile. "Tracy," he said softly. "I'm so glad you're safe." He reached for her hand. Tracy hesitated, then let him grasp it. His skin was warm, familiar. She wanted to believe him. "Alan," she began, voice trembling, "I need answers." She laid out everything, the cellar, the whispered resemblance, the pity in his eyes. Alan's expression darkened, his hand dropping to his side. "Tracy," he said, "there is no Martin. You know that." But his voice was too flat, too controlled. Tracy squared her shoulders. "Then explain why the cell had your cufflinks on the floor. Explain why the kidnapper knew things only you would know." Alan's jaw clenched. For a moment, she thought he might break, then he blinked, and the mask slid back into place. I planted those cufflinks myself," he said. "To throw suspicion off me." His eyes narrowed, and Tracy felt a chill. "I knew you'd investigate, that you'd ask questions. I needed to be ahead of you." Jack, who had slipped in behind Tracy, stifled a gasp. Diane and Ashley, who'd arrived moments later at Jack's silent summons, crowded into the doorway. The tension in the room was so thick it made the air taste metallic. "You're mad," Tracy whispered. "You set me up." Alan's smile was a slash of white in the dimming light. "No, sweetheart. I set Martin up." He flicked a switch, and the bookshelf behind him swung open to reveal a hidden alcove. Inside sat Martin, bound to a chair, eyes wild, face smeared with dirt and dried blood. He shrieked when he saw Tracy. "Help me!" Martin screamed. "He did this to me. He's the real monster." Tracy's heart hammered. Alan turned, exasperated. "See? You need me," he said to Tracy. "I'm the only one who can control him." Then, to Martin, "Quiet, you fool." Tracy took a step back. This was no longer about rescue or revenge, it was about survival. If Alan was willing to imprison his own twin, to manipulate everyone he loved, what lengths would he go to next? She glanced at Jack. His face was a mask of rage and fear. Diane's hand hovered near her purse, where her gun always was. Ashley's eyes were cold calculation. And in that moment, Tracy realized the truth: Martin had been the victim all along. A brother driven mad by jealousy, perhaps, but trapped by a twin even more dangerous. If they were to stop Alan, they would need Martin's cooperation, his knowledge of Alan's darkest secrets. A psychopath to catch a psychopath. "Release him," Tracy said, voice steady. "We need to talk." Alan laughed, a sound that echoed off the marble floor. "You really think you can handle us both?" But he flipped another switch, and the chair's restraints clicked open. Martin slumped forward, rubbing his wrists. He glared at Alan with venom, then at Tracy. "Let's make a deal," he rasped. "You help me take him down, and I'll tell you everything." Tracy swallowed. She knew she was walking a razor's edge, teaming up with a man who had hurt innocent people. But with Alan's mind games, her only hope was to use one brother against the other. As the four of them stood in the flickering lamplight, Jack's fists clenched, Diane's gun now in her hand, Ashley calculating escape routes, Tracy took a deep breath. "All right," she said. "Talk." And so began the most dangerous alliance Genoa City had ever seen, a trio of survivors, each scarred by betrayal, united against a monster in a man's face. This expanded storyline weaves suspense, emotional stakes, and character interplay into a dramatic arc, showing how even the most innocent among us can be ensnared by family secrets, and how salvation sometimes requires forging uneasy alliances. Sally had been on edge for weeks. Every whisper of scheming and every hushed conversation in the corridors of Genoa City's most secretive offices had set her mind racing. Today, she found herself in the quiet, dimly lit corner of a secluded cafe, waiting for Audra to arrive. The air was heavy with tension as she stared out the window, wondering what new twist this day might bring. Audra finally entered, her face set in a conflicted expression that betrayed the inner turmoil churning within her. Sally's eyes met hers immediately, and without a word, the two of them settled into the worn leather booth that had witnessed more than its share of whispered secrets and broken promises. As they sat down, Audra hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Sally, I need to update you on something, and I'm not entirely sure you want to hear it," she admitted, her voice low and cautious. The flicker of concern in her eyes made it clear that this wasn't just another routine update. Sally leaned in, her heart pounding as she murmured, "Go ahead, Audra. What's going on?" Audra took a deep breath. "Victor made me an offer, a job, something he called the dream job. He wants me to take on a role that, if you can believe it, is connected to a plan against Kyle Abbott." The words hung in the air like a heavy fog. Sally's mind raced. Working for Victor had never ended well in the past, and Audra's voice quavered as she recounted the details. "You know as well as I do, Sally," Audra continued, "that working for Victor is always a gamble. The stakes are high, and trust is a luxury we can't afford. But he's offering something more. More money, more influence, and, if I'm being honest, the possibility of finally getting ahead. Sally's eyes narrowed. And yet, here you are, teetering on the edge again. After everything that happened before, why risk it now? Audra's gaze dropped to her hands. I don't know if it's the allure of that dream job or the fact that I'm desperate for a change, a way out of this perpetual game of chess where every move could be my last. But Victor's offer isn't as straightforward as it seems. There's no guarantee that he'll follow through on his promises, and even if he does, who's to say he won't turn around and fire me the moment I'm no longer useful? Sally absorbed every word, her mind piecing together the implications. She had long suspected that Victor's motives were rarely as transparent as he claimed. What did you say exactly? Sally probed gently, aware that Audra might be holding back details. Audra hesitated, glancing around as though afraid that the shadows themselves might overhear. I can't tell you everything, Sally. I mean, Victor's plan, it's all very delicate. There's talk of eliminating Kyle Abbott from the equation, but the specifics. I'm not privy to every detail. And you know how dangerous it is to trust him. His dream job might just be another trap. Sally felt a knot form in her stomach. The thought that Victor, with all his charm and manipulation, might be orchestrating a far more sinister game was almost too much to bear. So you're saying that while you're considering this offer, there's a potential for more trouble brewing between us? Sally asked, her voice tight with worry. Audra's eyes met hers, a flash of pain mingling with determination. Exactly. I can't shake off the feeling that this could be the beginning of something very dangerous, not just for me, but for all of us caught up in his web. And frankly, I'm terrified of what might happen next. I've seen what happens when Victor's schemes unravel. People get hurt, lives are ruined, and no one ever really escapes unscathed. The two women sat in silence for a long moment, each grappling with their thoughts. Sally's mind raced with memories of past betrayals and close calls. She recalled the bitter taste of regret from previous encounters with Victor's machinations and wondered why Audra was willing to gamble on his offer again. You know, Sally said slowly, working for Victor always felt like dancing with the devil. We both know how that story ended the last time. Audra gave a small, rueful smile, though it did little to mask the tremor in her voice. I do, Sally. I remember all too well the cost of his promises. But sometimes, the allure of power and the promise of change can be too tempting to ignore. Maybe it's the thrill of the unknown, or perhaps the desperate hope that this time, things will be different. Sally frowned, her protective instincts flaring. Or maybe it's just the same old trick, baiting you into another corner where your options are limited. And once you're in, Victor's not going to let you go that easily. Audra sighed, her eyes distant as if she were peering into a future filled with shadows. I've heard that even if he gives you what you ask for, he always keeps something in reserve, a contingency plan to ensure you remain exactly where you're supposed to be. Sally leaned back, absorbing the implications of every word. The more she heard, the more it became clear that the stakes were higher than either of them had anticipated. And what about the risks to your relationship with the rest of us? She asked, her tone soft but urgent. If Victor's plan involves taking out Kyle, that could lead to a domino effect. Trust would shatter, alliances would crumble, and nothing would be the same. Audra's expression hardened. That's exactly what worries me. It's not just about me or the job, it's about all of us who've been swept up in this mess. The fallout could be catastrophic. Friends turning against friends, families divided, and lives destroyed. The room felt smaller, the weight of their conversation pressing down like an avalanche of impending disaster. Sally looked at Audra with a mix of sorrow and steely determination. I need to let someone know, to sound the alarm, she murmured. If Victor's playing us for fools again, we need to be ready to counter his moves. I can't stand by and watch all of us, get caught in his web. Audra's eyes softened, grateful for Sally's concern but also troubled by the implications of such a move. I appreciate that, Sally. I truly do. But I'm not sure if you fully understand the risks. Once you alert everyone, there's no turning back. The game changes, and there will be no more hiding. Sally nodded slowly. I understand the risks all too well. But if we don't act now, if we don't expose Victor's true intentions before it's too late, we might find ourselves deeper in trouble than ever before. Audra hesitated, torn between the desire to protect herself by staying under Victor's radar and the need to rally the others against a common enemy. I'll tell you what I know, she whispered finally, but you must promise me that you'll be careful. This isn't just about exposing a dangerous plan, it's about ensuring that no one else becomes a victim of his manipulation. Sally reached across the table, squeezing Audra's hand with earnest intensity. I promise. We'll get through this together. I won't let you face this alone, and I won't let Victor tear us apart again. As the cafe's ambient chatter continued around them, their quiet pact forged in whispered secrets and shared memories, both women understood that the road ahead was fraught with peril. The prospect of Victor's dream job loomed like a dark storm cloud over their futures, and the uncertainty of whether Audra's tentative alliance with him would bring salvation or ruin weighed heavily on their hearts. Yet, in that moment, there was a spark of hope, a belief that by confronting the danger head-on, they might steer the course of events towards something better than the usual cycle of betrayal and pain. Sally's mind raced with strategies and contingency plans, and as she left the table, she resolved to alert the others discreetly, to gather allies before the storm broke. Outside the cafe, the city was bathed in the fading glow of dusk. The promise of nightfall was both a comfort and a warning, a reminder that darkness could conceal secrets as well as reveal them. Sally glanced at the crowded street, thinking of Kyle, of the fractured alliances, and of Victor's ever-calculating smile. Each face in the throng held its own story of survival and regret, and somewhere amidst the chaos, the truth was waiting to be uncovered. In the days that followed, Sally would begin her careful, methodical outreach to those who might have an interest in thwarting Victor's schemes. Jack, Diane, and even Ashley would soon be drawn into a web of intrigue where loyalties were tested and the line between friend and foe blurred. And all the while, Audra, caught in the grip of a decision that could alter her life forever, would be forced to confront the painful reality that sometimes, the pursuit of a so-called dream could lead to the very nightmare one had hoped to avoid. Thus, as the gears of fate began to turn and the once hidden plans of a powerful adversary emerged from the shadows, Sally's heart pounded with determination. She knew that by acting now, she might just be able to steer the course of events toward a future where trust could be rebuilt, even if it meant confronting the very forces that had once shattered it. This narrative weaves together the tension between trust and betrayal, the looming threat of Victor's machinations, and the delicate balance of relationships caught in the crossfire. It sets the stage for a larger confrontation that promises to shake the very foundations of every alliance in Genoa City. February 2nd.